Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Maddie. I will be your host today. Today we are embarking on an adventure, one where I tell you about all the books that I want to read in 2026 and you sit and listen to me yap. I previously made a video on all the books I picked out for my 2026 TBR, and since then I have picked out a few more books, which I'm not sure why I did that because I have only read 1 out of the 13 books on my TBR so far, and I am notoriously bad at TBRs. I am a mood reader by heart. I don't have a lot of hope in myself, but yet I persist. I wanted to use this video to showcase all the books that I picked for my TBR and go a little more in depth on why I picked them, and to also show you the new books that I picked out. Hi, Thelma. Hello. My cat's here. Hi, come on up. It takes her a little time. She is like a vampire. She has to be explicitly invited onto your lap before she ventures onto it. But she's here now, so we're good. Do you have anything to say to our viewers? Before we get into the actual video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you want to see more bookish and art content, because that's kind of all that I think about and all that I talk about. And art is a broad term purposefully because books, movies, Fall Out Boy, it all counts. I'm gonna try to proceed with Thelma on my lap, but sometimes she takes a bit to get settled. Sometimes she knocks herself off of my lap. She will get off balance and she'll turn around to me as if it's my fault, but I'm the one that is not moving. She's the one that's moving on my lap. She just doesn't have the best balance. She's a little bit of an old lady. We'll see how long she stays. Starting off with the only book that I've read from my TBR this year, that is Orlando by Virginia Woolf, and good lord, absolutely 5 stars. I cannot... TBR? Oh, bye Thelma. I cannot tell you how amazing I think this book is. This book is the story of this high nobleman named Orlando who doesn't age. It's really not explained how he lives so long, but you see him traveling through different significant times in history. We see him start in the 1500s, I believe, and the book ends in the 1920s. Somewhere along the way, however, Orlando wakes up as a woman, and she has to deal with the fact that society does not treat her the same way as they did when she was a man, and what it means for her to suddenly switch sex overnight. And it's darkly humorous. It's very insightful in how perspectives changed based on who someone is talking to or addressing, but then also how perspectives change throughout history, and I just cannot talk highly enough about Orlando. The next book I have here is Paradise Lost by John Milton. I have read this before. I read it in a world literature class millennia ago. I have a theory that someday I would like to prove that Breaking Bad is just a retelling of Paradise Lost. I kind of only have a very loose basis for that, but I hope to reread this and rewatch Breaking Bad and try to make the argument, or maybe just try to investigate whether that claim is true. I feel like there's a good argument there, so I hope it delivers the way that I want, spoken like a fake scientist, because that's not the scientific method. Next up, I have The Son of Neptune. I have been on my Percy Jackson Greek mythology kick lately. Last year, I reread The Lost Hero, and I'm excited for this one because I really do not remember much of the Heroes of Olympus at all. I remember House of Hades being my favorite of the 5, but I could not tell you a single event that happens, so I am excited. The next one I have here is an attempt to get over my big book fear, which I wanted to tackle at least one big book this year, and the one that I chose is Don Quixote. I don't know why I chose this one. I'm very afraid even holding it. I remember reading a few parts of it in my world literature class, but now that I'm actually feeling the weight of these 1,000 pages, I'm starting to reconsider. It is regarded as like the first ever novel, and I'm curious to read it through that lens, but I feel very afraid looking at this. Because I read both the Odyssey and the Iliad last year, I thought it was only fitting to add the Aeneid onto this list. I am just now realizing how many rereads there are in my TBR. I've also read this in my world literature class. I guess I'm just recreating the syllabus, which is kind of a vibe. I did like that class a lot. I do remember falling asleep almost every time I had to read this for class, however, so I don't remember a whole lot of it. It did not stick with me like the Odyssey did, but we're gonna give it a second shot. I do want to know how it compares to the other two epics. Finally, not a reread, I have The Tenant of Windfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I read both Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre last year, so I figured it was only fair to complete the Bronte Trinity. I don't know anything about this book. I kind of love the cover though. The cover is kind of giving Audrey Hepburn, you know what I mean? I feel like overall I'm not super good with Gothic literature. There's just an element of it that I don't really get. But every time I read a Gothic novel, I'm like, I wish this was for me. I wish I liked this more. It does feel like a little bit of a sin to say, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Jane Eyre. I love Wuthering Heights basically for the memes, for the fact that it's so toxic that it's just like, how the hell did anyone come up with this? But Jane Eyre, I don't know, maybe because it was just built up to be like so much of like the best classic in the world that I just kind of felt a little let down. But I am curious about this because I know absolutely nothing about it and people don't talk about it as much, so I'm curious why. Next up, need I remind you that I'm back in my Greek mythology phase. I am so ready to be the 12-year-old annoying Greek mythology kid that was never fully realized. I found this random cute little book of Greek mythology, and it's all just a bunch of essays from other famous writers on figures in Greek mythology. So for example, the first essay in here is about Zeus by James Baldwin. So they're all just little excerpts of famous authors and their takes on these Greek myths. Next up, I have a book that I'm afraid of because no one has ever said a bad thing about it. That is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I'm just now noticing this Oprah's Book Club sticker on it, and I'm gonna have to take that off as soon as I'm done recording this. I cannot have this on my book. And fortunately, it is a removable sticker. Don't get me started on the stickers on book covers that you cannot remove. Anyway, The Road. No one's ever said a bad thing about this book, and I'm very afraid of reading it and not liking it. Next, I have a companion book to that, not because they are similar in any way, but because I always get them mixed up based on the titles. I have On the Road by Jack Kerouac. I'm also afraid of this book, but in a very different way. This is a classic, but it is also notoriously controversial. I do want to figure out why people love it and hate it. I think that's very interesting to read books that are super notorious, to know why they gained popularity back in the day or maybe gained popularity over time and why opinions have changed. I think it's really interesting to look at sociology that way. And I think this might be a good example on looking at, well, who loves this book, who doesn't love this book, why was it ever popular, all sorts of questions like that, things that don't necessarily have answers to, that I just love to think about. I did not realize when I got this that this was the original scroll version, which means there's literally no chapter breaks, there's no paragraph breaks at all. This was the original way that he wrote it, I believe, which sounds like a terrible reading experience, but also something that I've never experienced before. So we'll see how it is in more ways than one. Would you look at that? Another reread. Here I have Sense and Sensibility by my absolute queen, Jane Austen. I've read this several years ago, but I'll be honest and say that when I read it, I kind of don't think I got it. And given the fact that it's been so long since I've read it and I don't remember literally anything from it, I feel like it will be like reading this book for the first time again, and I am excited about that. I also have the manga classics version, so maybe I'll check that out after I read this as well. I have the Pride and Prejudice and the Emma versions. They're all incredible. I love the manga classics. They're so stupid, but they're so much fun. Speaking of controversial figures, I have Love is a Dog from Hell by Charles Bukowski. Like Kerouac, I know that he is an insanely controversial person. People either love or hate his poetry, and once again, I want to know why. I have not read a single one of his poems. The most I know about this man is that his name is a banger of a song by Modest Mouse. We'll see how this is. I believe this is his most famous poetry collection, and I'm down for a wild time. Next on my list, I have A Raisin in the Sun. Do I know anything about this book? No. Do I still want to read it? absolutely. All I know is that this is a classic and people talk about it a lot, and I'm curious about why it's so influential, why it has stood the test of time, why is it considered a classic, all of those good questions. I also want to read this because I do own a good amount of plays, but I haven't read a lot of them. I've read Arthur Miller and Samuel Beckett, but aside from that, I really haven't read a whole lot, so expanding my horizons, as they say. Next, I have a book that I don't own yet, so I can't show it to you, but I do plan to read Pastures of Heaven by John Steinbeck. Last year, I read Cup of Gold by him, which is his first novel, and I've had a goal for a while to read all of his stuff in order. I haven't read too many of his books, but every book that I have read, I've absolutely loved. So for a long time, I've been wanting to read his works in order just to see like how his voice and his writing style changes throughout time. I've never really done that with an author before, and I think that it would just be really cool to see how their craft changes throughout their life. So that is my completed list of my 2026 TBR. Now on to the books that I have recently added. The first book I have here is The Witch of Colchis by Rosie Hewlett. I recently read Circe by Madeline Miller. Loved it way more than I thought I was going to. And in the book, she briefly mentions Medea, and I'm just yearning. I'm yearning for more Greek mythology retellings. And I have seen so many people on Bookstagram rave about this book in particular, and I'm going to buddy read it with one of my friends on there. So I'm very excited for that. In a similar vein, I have the original Medea play. I'm curious to know how the new retelling will compare to this, plus it's super thin and shouldn't take me that long. Up next, I have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Once again, Greek mythology kid. I purposely don't know anything about this book because, as Jack Edwards has said, it's kind of better to go into it not knowing what it's about, so I'm going to trust his word on it and not look up anything about it. Which is kind of how I operate with most books anyway. I kind of don't want to know spoilers to the point where I won't even look up the synopsis of a plot. For most things, I want to know like as little as possible about what I'm going to read. I don't know why I choose that. I kind of just like the chaos of it, I guess. The next one should be self-explanatory, Greek mythology kid. I rented this out at the library, didn't read it in time, and then saw it at one of my local bookstores that was closing down, so I'm just like, I guess I have to buy it. I guess this is a sign. It was half off, okay? I normally don't buy new books unless I'm for sure that I'm gonna like them or have already read them. But I had to buy this one, and I hope it's good. If it's not, hey, I've done worse. Next on my list here, I have The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I have reread this fairly recently, but for some reason I've just gotten the itch to reread it again. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I can't really tell you why. I can't really pinpoint why, because none of the characters are likable. It's really not an enjoyable story. The way it's written is kind of frustrating, but I kind of just like how all of those horrible things come together. It feels like The Great Gatsby's darker other half. I guess I should say bleaker other half. The Great Gatsby is still like full of hope to an extent, but I feel like there's just not a lot of hope throughout all of The Sun Also Rises. They're kind of just resigned to their fate. I don't know. Once again, can't really tell you why I like this book so much. Maybe I will figure it out once I reread it for like the fourth time. Next up on my list is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone. I've seen a lot of people talk about this online, including Jack Edwards. If you can't tell, I'm a big fan of his. I have heard this recommended for fans of Tenet by Christopher Nolan, which does intrigue me. I know that this is supposed to be very trippy and weird. Do I know anything else about it? No. But anytime someone tells me that something is like really trippy and hard to understand, I kind of see it as a big challenge. Like, I want to be the person that goes in there, watches or reads the thing, and it's just like, you guys had trouble with this? Come on. Do you think hubris is my fatal flaw? Lastly here, a book that I will probably save more for summertime is Sunburn. I have heard this described as the lesbian version of Call Me By Your Name. And Call Me By Your Name is the summer book. You know what I mean? Like, that is the summer book. That book makes me want to actually enjoy summer. Like, I hate the summer. I hate the heat. I hate the sunshine. I would like all of it to go away. But Call Me By Your Name makes me actually want to like sit by the pool and enjoy the feeling of like the pool water evaporating off of your skin when you're just like laying beside it after a swim. You know what I mean? And no other book has made me feel that way. Literally no other book except maybe this one. So I'm excited to see if this is the lesbian version of Call Me By Your Name or if that's just a selling point. Who knows in this capitalistic society? And with that, that is my completed 2026 TBR, which has grown from 13 books up to 20 books. I do not know how many of these I will read this year. I am a horrendous mood reader. I cannot tell you the amount of times I have just been at night looking at my bookshelves, yearning for a book to read, and I will pluck it off of my bookshelf and just read half of it before I go to sleep. And I'm like, great, this is the book I'm gonna read now. Doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of like 7 other books. If I want to start a new one, I will start a new one right then and there. TBRs hate to see me coming because they know I will abandon them. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming on this adventure with me and sitting there while I yap to you. If you liked this video, please click the like button. If you want to rant to me about any of the books that I picked, leave it in the comments. I would love to know what you think about any of these. And if you want to see more of my videos, click the subscribe button. Come hang with me. I'm gonna edit that part out. That can't stay. Anyways, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye. Now, how the hell do I turn this thing off?